Okay, can you hear me? Am I on? Yep. Cool. Hi everyone, it's really great to be here. My name is Jack Russo. This is my first meetup talk and I am packing it, so go easy on me. You can find me on Twitter at lolrusso, which is super cringy, but yeah, I've got a love-hate relationship with that handle, but that's where I live. So I'm a design technologist at Digivisor. If you haven't heard of us, we're a local startup and we're working to make it easy for businesses to understand and make good decisions about their investments in digital marketing. And we're a small team. We've only got 7 full-time employees on our product engineering team, which I think might be quite small for people thinking about design systems. So that's the context for my talk. So yeah, first up, I'd like to offer a massive thank you to everyone at the DTA for making tonight happen. I'm really excited. Is this like, yeah, should I stop?
No, keep talking.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this to grow and for everyone to keep helping each other out. I think there's like a culture of that with design systems. It's really easy to get excited about design systems in 2018. It felt like every other week last year there'd be a new design system with its own brand and awesome stuff coming out. And just being able to scroll down a list like this is super inspiring. But there is a trend, and that's that most of these design systems are built by big tech companies, a lot of enterprise companies. And there's a good reason for this. Building and maintaining a design system represents like a significant investment. Time, resources, focus. And when your team is small and you're trying to move fast, that kind of investment can quite easily seem like a luxury or a distraction. So yeah, tonight I kind of want to turn that question of when are you big enough for a design system upside down. I'm going to give some tips on selling a design system internally to a small team, real quick though, because I know someone else is going to talk on that. And I'll hopefully provide you with some practical tips if you're on a small team and you want to get started but you haven't already yet. What I'm not going to do is focus too much on what is or isn't a design system. No lines between style guides, pattern libraries, design systems. I think it's unhelpful. I think there's more important conversations to be had, and there's a really fantastic article on this by Sarah Fiederman called Distilling How We Think About Design Systems. I really recommend it. So instead of focusing on what a design system is, let's start at looking why anyone builds them at all. Consistency across multiple products, teams, and devices, also known as quality. Speed, to ship products faster, to reduce rework. Focus, to solve basic recurring problems systematically and allow time to focus on the real design problems. The problems at the core of your business that will actually create value for your users. And usually, it's to solve these problems at scale. So let's talk about scaling design. Are there any solo designers on your teams here tonight? There's a couple. What about if you're working in a design team that's significantly smaller than the engineering team? Anyone? Yeah, most of us maybe. So yeah, for small teams, the challenge with scaling design is actually around scaling the design function of the org. It's not about maintaining consistency across multiple product teams or multiple products. You might not even have multiple products. It's about making sure that designers aren't a bottleneck on the product development process, and doing so without sacrificing that acceptable level of quality. So making sure that designers aren't acting as gatekeepers. So I'm actually going to be a bit naughty here. I'm going to borrow some metaphors from other talks to explain what scaling that design function actually looks like. There's this super good talk, CSS for software engineers for CSS developers by Harry Roberts. And he uses this example of Subway to illustrate the single responsibility principle, which is like a principle from computer science that obviously I think you can see applies to CSS quite easily. And he's saying if each ingredient is clearly defined and it does a single job really well, then as a designer or as a CSS developer, you don't need to provide a monolithic sandwich spec for every time you want work done. you can give developers the ingredients and they can build their own sandwiches, all sorts of sandwiches. But it's always going to be within the acceptable kind of bounds of your design language. So yeah, with design systems, when you document your design decisions and you lock them down in code, you're handing over the ingredients to your team. I've got another fast food example from Gina Ann's talk, Design Systems Are for People. I just can't beat it. It's great. If you have seen the film The Founder, it's about the early days of Macca's, and it illustrates how a team can kind of work on their processes and remove all bottlenecks to optimize for speed and delivery. And if you can do this for your team, if you can really think deeply about how you can increase velocity and remove all bottlenecks from your process, as well as pull out all your design decisions into modular patterns or ingredients that can be used and combined by anyone, you've actually democratized design. You've empowered every person on your team to not just build UIs, but to experiment with them and prototype their ideas. And like at Subway, it's all within the bounds of your design language. So I like to say design is a process, not a job title. And I think for a lot of people working in this space, it's a bit like that. People don't have clear lines between design and development. So yeah, if you're on a small team, the impact of your design decisions fanning out to multiple work streams at the same time, with even back-end engineers slinging components around, that's really awesome. And as a designer, you can focus on core design problems. This isn't just a small team thing. Some big teams operate like this. This came out last week. Deliveroo are clearly thinking very, very similarly. But in a small team that maybe it hasn't even found product market fit yet, optimizing for iteration and shorter learning cycles, that's absolutely essential. I think design systems are a really powerful tool for that. So hopefully you've kind of got an idea that design systems have a lot of value for small teams as well as large teams. But how do you convince stakeholders it's a good idea? Like everything, you have to sell your work, you have to take stakeholders on a journey. And yeah, in a small team with limited time, budget, and resources, you've got to be careful about how you talk about things. So this is quite a well-known quote about design systems. And I just kind of want to ask, how do you think this would go down on a small team with a CEO or a product manager? I think it'd be a bit like this. It would be like, we're already struggling with our product. We already have a roadmap that we're behind on. I think you got to save talk like that for later until you have more leverage. But if you're talking like this, everyone can get around this, no matter what size your team is. So I think that's, yeah, I think that's a bit more like this. And if that doesn't go down well, then you could try telling your boss that 61% of respondents to a CSS tricks poll said they'd be more likely to want a job somewhere working on a pattern library, which at a small team, getting good talent at an early stage of a product is essential. The other option is to just don't sell it. And that's something where your mileage may vary, but in a small team, you might have a little bit more leeway to get things done. It's one of the advantages of being in a small team where you're a bit more nimble. You can just get started. And I've got some tips for that. And the first one is just don't worry what other teams are doing. Be inspired, yeah. Learn from them, yeah, but you really need to focus on solving your own problems. Your design systems are not going to look like anything from Airbnb's work. And that's the way it should be. You're solving different problems at a different scale. So start with where can you see bottlenecks or opportunities to improve your product development process. Ask questions like, can everyone build UIs confidently without having to have like arcane knowledge of the hidden design decisions in the front end? Can everyone write copy? Could someone get an illustration from somewhere and use it effectively? When you identify these problems, then you can apply the design process that you know and love to solve them. Another tip is to embrace trade-offs. Software is about compromise. So you really don't have to roll your own for everything. That starts with icons. Font Awesome 5 has got different weights. It's pretty decent. Grid systems. if your team's familiar with something, if you're functional and practical with it, roll with it. And documentation sites. So yeah, if you want to roll your own docs, you can. Or you could just pick something off the shelf like React Style Guidance or Storybook, and you're going to get a lot of leverage from that. I would say focus on your current tech stack. It's really cool to think about a tech-agnostic approach, and it would be really great to make a design system that you could just carry with you everywhere. But in a small team, you have to solve the problems that you have right now, and maybe the ones that you foresee in the very near future. But there's no point trying to future-proof your decisions in a really fast-moving environment, because you need to make sure you've continually got leverage to take time off the product development cycle and put some into maintenance. Start documenting like now. So I love a really quick and dirty approach. Just start a README with every component and keep it with the component. Document how to use it, document its props. And that has the added benefit of using GitHub or the developer's text editor as the documentation site. Lock down shared style values. This is basic for you guys. But encoding your design decisions and then hunting and destroying any magic numbers, that's also documentation. Like it's in your code, in your shared variables or design tokens. You can follow a rule of 3. So avoid designing this whole design system up front. Wait until you see a component in a few contexts, and then move from those specific contexts back up into a general solution. And I think that the biggest thing I want to drive home, especially if you're in a small team, is just it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to launch with this branded doc site in one go where everything's there. You can solve specific problems and move forward with that. So yeah, hopefully you guys can get where I'm coming from on this, and if you're in a small team, not be intimidated by the idea of a design system, but just see it as a tool for you to get. It's not about waiting until you're big enough to do it. It's about using it as a tool to get big enough to solve other problems. They'll help you now. So yeah, that's me. If there's time for questions, yep. Anyone
Cool.
got any
Thanks,
questions?
Jack. Anyone got any questions on the floor? Mics?
Don't be shy.
Come on. Dom, you asked one.
Yeah. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jack.